Chapter 1. The Legend Awakens. The air was thick with anticipation as the moon cast its pale glow over the ivy-covered walls of Carter Hall. A group of intrepid college students, drawn by whispers of the building's haunted past, gathered at the edge of the campus grounds. Among them was Maya, the fearless leader with a camera in hand, determined to capture evidence of the supernatural for their YouTube channel. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, the group exchanged nervous glances as they prepared to embark on their late-night adventure. Backpacks filled with equipment clanked softly as they shifted from foot to foot, anticipation humming in the air like a live wire. "The stories about this place are insane," whispered Jake, his voice barely audible above the rustling of the trees. "I heard that no one's been inside for years." Maya nodded, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Exactly why we need to check it out. Imagine the views we'll get for our channel." With a final glance exchanged between them, Maya led the way, her steps echoing against the cobblestone path that led to Carter Hall's looming entrance. The ivy seemed to writhe in the moonlight, casting eerie shadows that danced across the stone walls like specters from a forgotten time. As they reached the threshold of the building, a chill wind swept through the air, sending a shiver down Maya's spine. She paused, her hand hovering over the ancient doorknob, and for a moment, she hesitated. But then, with a determined nod, she pushed the door open, revealing the darkness that lay beyond. "Let's do this," Maya said, her voice steady despite the butterflies fluttering in her stomach. And with that, they stepped into the darkness of Carter Hall, unaware of the horrors that awaited them within. Chapter 2. Into the Abyss. The group ventured further into Carter Hall, their footsteps echoing like distant whispers in the empty corridors. Shadows danced on the walls, playing tricks on their minds as they navigated the dimly lit passageways. At first, everything seemed ordinary. The creak of floorboards beneath their feet, the faint scent of dust hanging in the air. But as they delved deeper into the heart of the building, an oppressive atmosphere settled around them like a suffocating cloak. "Are you getting this?" Maya whispered, her camera capturing every flickering light and shifting shadow. "Yeah, but there's nothing here," replied Alex, his voice tinged with frustration. "I thought this place was supposed to be haunted." But Maya wasn't deterred. She could sense something lurking in the darkness, something waiting to reveal itself. With each step, the tension mounted, and the sense of unease grew palpable. Then, just as they were about to give up hope, they heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible over the sound of their own breathing. Goosebumps prickled on Maya's skin as she strained to listen, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. "Did you guys hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The others nodded, their eyes wide with fear. "We should go," said Emily, her voice trembling. But Maya shook her head. "No, we came here to find out the truth. And that's exactly what we're going to do." With renewed determination, they pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls like a drumbeat. Little did they know, they were about to uncover something far more sinister than they could ever imagine. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Dark. As they ventured deeper into Carter Hall, the whispers grew louder, weaving through the darkness like ethereal tendrils. Each step seemed to echo with the weight of their apprehension, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. "Do you think we should turn back?" whispered Emily, her voice barely audible over the eerie chorus of whispers. Maya hesitated, her grip tightening on the camera. "No, we need to keep going. We're so close to uncovering the truth." Despite their growing unease, they pressed on, their senses on high alert for any sign of the supernatural. But with each passing moment, the whispers seemed to intensify, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Suddenly, a door slammed shut behind them, the sound echoing through the empty halls like a gunshot. The group froze, their hearts pounding in their chests as they exchanged panicked glances. "What was that?" Alex exclaimed, his voice laced with fear. Before anyone could respond, another door slammed shut, followed by another and another, until they were surrounded by a symphony of slamming doors. "We need to get out of here," cried Emily, her voice tinged with hysteria. But escape seemed impossible. as the doors continued to close in around them, trapping them in a maze of narrow corridors and shadowy alcoves. Just when it seemed they were doomed to be swallowed by the darkness, the whispers ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that hung heavy in the air. With trembling hands, Maya pointed her camera into the darkness, capturing the fear it shed on their faces. Little did they know, their ordeal was far from over, and the true horror of Carter Hall was yet to reveal itself. Chapter 4. Shadows of the Past. As the group stood frozen in the suffocating silence of Carter Hall, a chill wind swept through the corridors, carrying with it an otherworldly presence. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. "What's happening?" whispered Jake, his voice trembling with fear. Maya's heart raced as she scanned the darkness with her camera, capturing the shifting shadows as they crept closer, like predators stalking their prey. "We need to stick together," Maya said, her voice steady despite the terror gnawing at her insides. But their attempts to regroup were interrupted by the sudden appearance of a figure, a shadowy silhouette lurking in the darkness, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Panic surged through the group as they backed away, their backs pressed against the cold stone walls. With nowhere left to run, they could only watch in horror as the figure drew closer, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. "We have to get out of here," cried Emily, her voice rising in desperation. But escape seemed impossible as the shadows closed in around them, enveloping them in a suffocating embrace. With each passing moment, their fear grew, threatening to consume them whole. Just when it seemed they were doomed to become victims of Carter Hall's dark legacy, a glimmer of hope appeared, a faint light shining from the end of the corridor, beckoning them forward like a guiding beacon. With renewed determination, they raced towards the light, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Little did they know, their journey was far from over, and the true horrors of Carter Hall were yet to be revealed. Chapter 5. Descent into Darkness. With hearts pounding and breaths ragged, the group rushed towards the faint light at the end of the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls of Carter Hall. As they drew closer, the light seemed to flicker and dance, casting long, distorted shadows on the walls. "What do you think it is?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya shook her head, her grip tightening on the camera. "I'm not sure, but we have to find out." With a sense of trepidation, they reached the source of the light, a narrow staircase leading down into the depths of the building. The air grew colder with each step, sending shivers down their spines as they descended into darkness. As they reached the bottom of the staircase, they found themselves in a dimly lit chamber, its walls adorned with strange symbols and faded writings. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and an oppressive atmosphere settled around them like a thick fog. "What is this place?" whispered Jake, his voice barely audible over the sound of their racing hearts. Maya scanned the room with her camera, capturing every detail. The ancient artifacts scattered across the floor, the flickering torches lining the walls, the ominous altar at the center of the chamber. "It looks like some kind of ritual chamber," she said, her voice tinged with unease. Before they could investigate further, a cold draft swept through the room, extinguishing the torches and plunging them into darkness. Panic surged through the group as they groped blindly in the blackness, their senses on high alert for any sign of danger. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, a chilling whisper that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" it hissed, sending shivers down their spines. With trembling hands, Maya pointed her camera into the darkness, capturing the fear etched on their faces as they braced themselves for whatever horrors lay ahead. Little did they know, they were about to uncover the darkest secrets of Carter Hall and face the true terror that lurked within. Chapter 6. Confrontation with the Unknown. In the suffocating darkness of the ritual chamber, the group stood frozen, their hearts pounding in their chests as they listened to the disembodied voice echoing through the air. Fear hung thick in the atmosphere, tangible and oppressive, as they braced themselves for what would come next. Maya steadied her trembling hands, her camera a beacon of light in the darkness, as she scanned the chamber for any sign of the source of the voice. but all she found were shadows, shifting and swirling like specters in the night. "We mean no harm," Maya called out, her voice quivering with uncertainty. "We just want to know the truth about this place." Silence greeted her words, broken only by the soft sound of their own breathing. For a moment, it seemed as though the darkness itself had swallowed the chamber whole, leaving them stranded in a void of nothingness. Then, without warning, the shadows began to coalesce, forming a figure in the center of the chamber. A spectral apparition, its form flickering like a dying flame. The group gasped in horror as they beheld the entity before them, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. It spoke again, its voice a chilling whisper that sent shivers down their spines. "You have trespassed into the domain of the dead," it intoned, its words echoing through the chamber like a death knell. Panic surged through the group as they backed away, their backs pressed against the cold stone walls. But the entity showed no sign of relenting, its gaze fixed upon them with unyielding intensity. "We must leave this place at once," Maya said, her voice trembling with fear. But before they could make their escape, the entity moved with lightning speed, its form engulfing them in darkness. They cried out in terror as they felt themselves being pulled into the abyss, their screams echoing through the empty halls of Carter Hall. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the darkness receded, leaving them shaken but alive. They stumbled out of the chamber, their hearts racing and their minds reeling from the horrors they had witnessed. As they emerged into the dim light of the corridor, they knew that their ordeal was far from over. The true terror of Carter Hall had been revealed, and they were left to grapple with the knowledge that some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. Chapter 7. Escape from the Abyss. With hearts still pounding and breaths ragged, the group stumbled out of the ritual chamber, their minds reeling from the encounter with the spectral entity. The oppressive darkness of Carter Hall seemed to close in around them, pressing down on their shoulders like a weight too heavy to bear. "We have to get out of here," Maya gasped, her voice barely audible over the sound of their own ragged breathing. The others nodded in agreement, their faces pale and drawn with fear. With trembling hands, they clung to each other as they made their way through the labyrinthine corridors of the building, every shadow seeming to hide unseen horrors. But escape seemed impossible as they found themselves trapped in a maze of narrow passageways and dead ends. Panic surged through the group as they realized that Carter Hall was determined to keep them prisoner within its haunted halls. "We can't give up," Emily said, her voice shaking with determination. "We have to find a way out." With renewed resolve, they pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls like a drumbeat of defiance. As they reached a familiar intersection, they spotted a faint glimmer of light shining through a cracked window. "That's our way out," Maya said, her voice filled with hope. With a burst of adrenaline, they raced towards the light, their hearts pounding in their chests as they pushed open the door and stumbled out into the cool night air. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the campus grounds as they collapsed onto the grass, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and relief. As they lay there, catching their breath and staring up at the starlit sky, they knew that they had survived the horrors of Carter Hall. But the memory of their ordeal would haunt them for the rest of their days, a reminder that some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. And as they watched the sun rise on the horizon, casting its golden light over the world once more, they knew that they had escaped from the abyss. But the true terror of Carter Hall would never be forgotten.